Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your questions 7 days a week. Let's go ahead and jump into those questions. Courtney, what do we have?
First one's up from Douglas Carmichael, and he says, I've been using my Sonnox Oxford SuprEsser to tame overly aggressive frequencies in my mixes, and it works very well. Has anyone had any experience with it?
I'll go with Chris.
Yeah, so that's the Sonnox, it's the suppressor. And so that's an incredible device. It's a great question. And there's a lot of different tools that will approach audio in this way, where essentially you have these frequency-dependent regions that you can create for just dynamic control within specific settings. So it's really, really a helpful thing. You can absolutely use it on sibilant vocals and nasally things. There's a ton of different iterations of these from different companies. The Fab Filter, like the Pro EQs, you have dynamic control in there. So there's a lot of things you can do that will actually go in and will grab problematic frequencies as the instances happen, instead of having an overall blanket. We're going to just take this giant chunk out of this program material, and now it's lacking. So yeah, love the suppressor, and all of these dynamic processors are just incredibly useful. So
next question.
Next one comes in from our frequent panelist, Guy Cochran in Seattle, Washington. I had a Behringer X32 rack lose audio channels 1 through 8 just minutes before a live event. 9 through 16 still worked. All inputs were condenser mics with 48-volt phantom. What could have caused this failure?
Good, Mickey.
It's hard to tell without being able to diagnose with the board right in front of me. But you mentioning that they're them being all condenser microphones, it could possibly be a failure of the phantom power 48-volt rail on those.
Yeah, and one thing that he did mention, we talked about this a little bit on Sunday, I think he wanted our audio experts to talk about it a little bit, is that it's used, he just bought it on eBay, number one, and number two is a factory reset made it all work again. So those are some added details to the question. Do you have any thoughts about why a factory reset? So it wasn't a failure as much as it somehow caused it to turn off, and then a factory reset turned it back on again. Any thoughts?
Yeah, if a board detects a fault, it could go into a self-protect mode, wherein it cuts power going to a rail, and that certainly kind of lines up with.
So do you think it might have been like a momentary something fell across it, caused it to fail, but it wasn't sitting across it or sitting on it like a piece of dust or something else?
Possibly, but I'd probably lean more towards if it is a failure of the rail or a fault in the rail. Possibly, most of the time it would be actually a failure in the sense of the sensing of say a high current draw on that rail, as opposed to an actual short. But you can if it happens again, you can take a multimeter and see if you are getting, if it happens, see if you're still getting 48 volts out of your outputs. And also you can also try plugging in a dynamic microphone, see if that works, just to really narrow down if it is indeed related to phantom power. But yeah, I think that's a good line of investigating, troubleshooting to see if it's related to phantom power, being that they're all condenser microphones there.
Right. Good, Chris?
Yeah, I would also just point out, with these kinds of consoles, the way that they're really constructed, being at a lesser price point, as things go up, they get much more modular, right? So banks 1 through 8 are all connected. They're all going to be fed power as one thing. In the lower down in price point you go, this is the way this stuff is all made. So it's really, really easy to lose banks of things just because they're all, it's kind of like series Christmas lights, one light goes out and they all go out. So that this bank of 1 through 8 and then 9 through 16 are all supplied their power. So it could be a phantom power thing. Honestly, it could easily be like a loose ribbon connector within the unit as well, like sending power to those things. One thing to really understand about like Behringer products and these things, everybody uses them. These are always made to tour with or to travel around with, right? The build quality quality on these units is not good. They break. They absolutely break. When they get banged around, they're sitting in the back of a truck and they're getting knocked around. They just don't handle that stuff real well. And so it's important to really kind of baby these units. I would really be pretty gentle with them because I've just had countless times of issue there. So I would definitely look, if this is a regular problem and happening, you very possibly just have to reseat, like ribbons to like the actual banks. Or, I mean, there's a bunch of things that can just kind of have it lose it, you know what I mean, and not be able to hold together. So I would kind of check that. You might just have a loose connection though, where just by luck the default kind of brought it back up without seeing it. It's hard to say, but
yep. Go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, indeed, Chris. In fact, having opened and done surgery on a full-size X32, I can tell you that the input and output circuit boards are done in groups of 8. So every circuit board contains 8 channels. So it's possible that input channels 1 to 8 on that circuit board might have a loose connection, either on a audio or on a power connector. So they're not terribly difficult to open up and physically inspect. So I would encourage you to do that.
But be careful. You could undo your warranty if you do that. So just do be careful with the company.
Probably not much of a warranty on a used product, if this happens again, and as everyone said, usually a lot of times they're in groups of 8. But if it's a power supply problem or something like that, usually a factory reset may not have solved it. But and you said 9 through 16 were working fine, so it wasn't the overall 48-volt power supply. And I would have rebooted it first rather than do a factory reset. Just turn it off, turn it back on again, and see if it comes back. That way, it would imply that it was a software issue or a firmware issue, something locking up one of the sections. If there's separate groups of A to D converters or something in each bank, maybe one of them got locked up because it is a digital mixer, and a factory reset refreshes that code that's in the EEPROMs, maybe. From a self-contained ROM that's on the motherboard. So that may be how it fixed it. And it could be that the EEPROMs that are holding the code for that bank, are getting flaky or have a bad connection. And if it happens again, I would test it first with a dynamic microphone or a line input to see if it's truly the 48-volt phantom power, or if it's just that whole bank is out with A to D converters, et cetera. So there's a lot of things you could do to troubleshoot it. It can't say much more without looking at a schematic.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, I've certainly I've seen stranger things with X32s where, as Courtney mentioned, like the EEPROMs forget that, oh, yeah, I'm a preamp. I'm supposed to do preamp things. But another thing with regards to troubleshooting, if there was indeed an extraordinary amount of current being drawn, hence triggering the self-protect mode, I might, if there is no fault on the board, you can also take a look at your cabling and also the microphones that were plugged in. A short could possibly occur there that would draw in a lot of current. That would lead to the phantom power supply pushing out a lot more than what is typically required for it.
Next question.
John Foltz from Sealings Grove, Pennsylvania says, I'm having trouble connecting a Yamaha DM3 to the Mac version of their mixing console software. Both are on the same network, and I can ping the DM3 from the Mac, but not connect.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that with modern Yamaha consoles, the ones that can be connected over IP or controlled over IP, they actually have 2 interfaces built in. One being the mixer control. So if you're using the software in the Mac to control the board, or if you're using an iPad to control the board remotely, That's the mixer control network interface. And there is also what's called the device control network interface. That's what you use to control, say, RF microphone receivers using the board itself. So there are two network interfaces within that single Ethernet jack of the DM3. There's a built-in network switch on inside the board itself. So you want to make sure that you are trying to access the appropriate interface for the mixer control. Don't try to access the device control. And of course, on the Dante version, the DM3D, there are three network interfaces on the board itself.
Next question.
Next question comes in from Paul Walhus in Austin, Texas. Holy Grail for hybrid meetings, dual 4K cameras, 14 mic array, AI powered, whatever that means, flexible mount, and the tag is $2,000. And he has a link to the Insta360.
And I think this is what we talked about yesterday, but go ahead, Nigel.
Yeah, sorry, I missed that yesterday. So I'm not sure this would be a holy grail for hybrid meetings, but it might make your conference room less terrible for the person on the other end of it. So I used to do a meeting, a virtual meeting with someone whose camera was, I think, installed in the roof, which was where the microphone was. And it was hard to hear, it was hard to see, and it was generally an unpleasant experience. I think if installed well, this may be as good as anything else like this. Where I think this might get interesting or might go completely off the rails is the AI. If it has the ability around a table to pick out the speaker, zoom into the speaker, and actually do that, it either could be really useful or it could be really annoying. But it won't fix bad sound in a bad room.
Go ahead, Marty.
Right. So traditionally, to do a conference room well requires multiple cameras, requires a beamforming microphone that can tell the camera where somebody is in the room when they're speaking so that the PTZ camera can move to that person. And at least two cameras so that you can shoot from either side of the table and get a head-on shot. All of this gets somewhat complicated and somewhat expensive. So this is an interesting and inexpensive way to do something like that. The mic bar with 14 microphones it says it has a 33-foot reach, so it's for somewhat smaller rooms and huddle spaces, but it has both a wide-angle camera and a PTZ adjustable camera in it that can do close-ups after it's located the person speaking, and it can track them as they move around. So it's an interesting product. For smaller spaces at a reasonable price point. So if you're not using an integrator or you don't have that kind of cash to do that, it looks like a very interesting product.
Go ahead, Courtney.
I can't find that video today that we looked at yesterday, but the thing that it does that is most amazing, and I pointed out that the AI may have to do with this, is that it shows you a gallery view. And in their demo video, they show people, there's a table, that the camera is on a wall at the end of a long table, and there are people on both sides of the table and the speakers at the end of that table. And so moving gimbal cameras tracking him, and the wide shot, which is 8K, has face detection on it for all the other people speaking. And I think it uses face detection, and it says in the documentation that it reads lips. I mean, that it can detect lip movement to determine who's speaking, as well as determining the field array for the audio. The interesting thing that it does is it gives you this gallery view where it shows you all the people sitting alongside the table there, which Jesse is showing that video now, and it gives you that gallery view. Now, you'll notice in that gallery view that everybody's looking at the camera and individual and a close-up shot of them. Now, that is kind of impossible when the camera's at a 90-degree angle to them, and and not movable off the wall. It doesn't come off the wall and come around and get close-up frontal views. So I think it's actually generating using VASA 1 or EMO, which are two new pieces of AI software that can take just a single image of a still image of a person and animate their mouth realistically to any audio track in real time. And if you go look for VASA 1 from Microsoft in China, this device, Insta360, is located in Shenzhen. So are all the research facilities that came up with this technology, AI technology for doing this real-time facial animation. So I think what it may be happening, and the reason they haven't released this, you haven't heard of VASA 1 or EMO. They're both the same thing. Two different Chinese research groups came up with this software. And the demos are quite amazing if you go look at them, and completely believable. And the reason they haven't released it is because of the fear that it would be the most terrifying propaganda tool ever released to be used. So they have not released it to the public. They've kept it very close to the vest. But this is an application where it could be used safely because it's attached to this. It would be in this piece of hardware, not a piece of software you could access, and it would only give you access to the people sitting in the room and only use their voices to animate their faces. So all they would have to do is, right before the conference starts, is everybody sitting down the sides of the table, look at the camera, and the little gimbal would go around and capture a still of each of their faces, and then it could generate that gallery view and synchronize it with the audio that comes in from its mic array. And give you that gallery view with actual live speaking faces. I
don't think that probably won't look weird at all.
It doesn't. Have you gone to VASA 1 and looked at the white paper and watched it?
It's in a lab environment, sure. In real world, bad lighting, distant people. All of these technologies so far that I've seen, they look great when we test them, and then we put them in the real world, and it just looks like. Here's the problem is you got to hit it 100%. You got to nail it 100% or it's zero because it just weirds people out. And so there's no room for error. And that's the problem. I think this is just marketing. I don't think that grid, we'll see. I want to see someone actually use this in a conference room. I don't believe it'll work. Good.
It remains to be seen.
It remains to be seen, but I'm until I see like an hour of it working in a real conference room, I'm not interested in that feature. The feature that there's a whole bunch of features in it that look great. That is not one of them to me. Yeah, go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, indeed, it does sound great. If you notice in this picture, the window has shades drawn. So, but in a real world situation, those shades would be completely open. That window would be super bright behind four of the people. Also, as Courtney mentioned, you'll see that people are facing the camera when in a real world meeting situation. When the discussion is happening around the table, people are looking at each other.
Well, and again, I don't see them talking in that demo. Like that. Look, there's a still.
Yeah, the guy that's lit up is talking. See?
Yeah, they are talking a little bit, but they're talking directly. They're looking and talking into the camera. But when conversation is happening around a meeting in the room, people are looking across the table at each other. And if somebody at the far end of the table is speaking, then everybody's looking at them, which means they're looking away from the camera. Yeah. So having that one camera at the end of a long conference table is always problematic, which is why we want to put two cameras at opposite sides of the table so that we can shoot across and get everybody more fully onto the camber.
Which leads me to believe that these are animated stills,
and they'll look horrible.
Live picture of those people.
I'm not saying that they're not. That you might not. You may be right. They're just going to look horrible if they. I just don't think they're going to. I don't think it's going to work.
Go look at the demo. White paper.
I don't care about white papers. White papers don't mean anything to me. White papers are theoretical knowledge, which is worse than actual than not having any knowledge at all.
It's a demonstration video.
Okay.
White papers are concepts of a plan.
I've gotten paid a lot of money to do demonstrations that didn't work. Actually, in the real world. Next question.
So we'll rename you Doubting Alex.
Yeah, exactly.
Next, coming in from Danny Grizel in Longview, Texas. He says, repairs, good, bad, ugly. I don't want to crucify any company here, but I would like to recognize manufacturers who stand behind their products. I've had excellent experiences with SHURE, Can panelists sing praises for others?
I go Jesse.
We've had really good experiences with Apple and Blackmagic, of course. Really terrible experiences with Canon, and the one factor that seemed to improve the quality of our experience with repairs is going to the manufacturer and being ready to pay money to get the repair done.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, there's a ton of companies, and like I'll definitely say again, when you go up in price point, you're going to get a way more personal experience if you are having issues, especially if you have a problem with something that costs $150,000, it's real different with your problem than some $500 little monitors that you bought. So for me, I only work with companies. And this is a great question. I only work with companies where I have backup support, where I have cell phone numbers for backup support of every manufacturer and product in my studio. If anything dies all of a sudden here, I'm not putting in a ticket for any of this equipment. I'm calling a direct cell phone number of somebody, right, which is obviously a luxury. But Rupert Neve Designs, love this stuff, absolutely. I mean, PMC, I actually had to send a speaker back. They were incredibly great with that. I mean, pretty much, Apple, any of these things. And again, the places that you're purchasing this stuff through also can frequently offer their own warranties, Sweetwater, things like this. So that can also be a really nice just interaction to have that may prevent you from even having to deal with a distributor directly. There's really a lot of amazing companies. All these premium audio companies, for the most part, are pretty fantastic. So I can't speak on the camera side of it, but yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, plus one though to what Chris said about actually having a relationship with the vendors and manufacturers you work with, having someone that you can call directly, it really helps with expediting, like especially when things are in an emergency state. For me, I have amazing experience with Sound Devices, with their after sale support, their repairs, and also just their maintenance. Like, although their bench fees have increased quite a bit in the past couple of years, I'm very, very happy to send my gear to them for repair. Not only repair, but just preventive maintenance. They do an excellent job, and they even spot things that, I didn't even know that was malfunctioning, that was broken, but they find it in their diagnostics, and they just fix it. Another thing with Sound Devices and a lot of pro audio manufacturers, in a situation where you really need hardware, they will give you a loaner while the machines, the equipment is being repaired, which is a massive thing. Another company that I really like, and I have a similar experience with, is Electrosonics. Like, even though I have started to invest in another system, I'm still very, very happy working with Electrosonics hardware and also their after sale support. Similar thing, Avid. A couple weeks ago, I made a boo-boo and blew up a bunch of gear, and had to.
That's the technical term for it.
It was an expensive boo-boo, but yeah, I had a couple systems offline, and Avid sent me 2 HD native boxes to use while I was waiting for the replacement, which arrived this week. Have a really good. Don't just be transactional with your manufacturers and your vendors. Actually, have a working relationship with them. And Danny, you didn't mention, like, if it's specifically about media production. In terms of cars, I'm so happy with the after sale support of Subaru.
It's like Subaru. It's not. Yeah, go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, as a dealer and integrator, systems integrator myself, relationships with manufacturers and their regional reps are really important for support, both for system design, for assistance, and for service. Don't forget that your first opportunity for service is with the company you purchased it from. So that would be your local dealer or integrator. And then they have multiple levels of support that they can then reach out to, being regional representatives and manufacturers. I've had very good relationships with Symmetrics for DSPs, with SHURE and Sennheiser, with Williams AV and Listen Technologies for hearing assistance systems, flat panel audio loudspeakers, and JBL, and many, many, many others. Pretty much everyone other than Music Tribe.
Not that he's bitter. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I agree with everyone else. If you buy your equipment through a local rep or dealer, that's the first person you want to go to and have a good relationship with them. And especially if you find a dealer, like I used to buy a lot of professional equipment from Location Sound or True Audio, and they both have rental divisions. So they have a deep selection of rental equipment available. So if you have something that has to be taken in for repair, a lot of times they will provide you with one out of rental until the repair is done. So that's a good way. And if they have to send it back to the manufacturer, they have a good relationship with that manufacturer because they're an authorized dealer. I've had good experience along those, and I get to know the repair person in charge of the repair, the head repair technician at those dealers, and can talk to them directly. And a lot of times they can troubleshoot stuff over the phone for me, which is great because they deal with these things on a daily basis. So I've had bad experience with Panasonic on a camera the local factory repair facility in Los Angeles. And that I had a camera and the back focus went out, and they said, well, you have to replace the whole optical block on this camera, which includes the lens and the chips and everything else. And I went, you can't just reset the back focus. No. You have to replace, it was a $2,000 repair. And I went, well, I'll sell it. That's not worth it. Yeah.
Go ahead, Nigel.
Yeah, I think two thoughts cross my mind. One is the amount of support you're going to get is inversely proportional to the amount you pay for the product in comparison to the other products that do similar things. So if you get something really cheap when everybody else is expensive, you should assume that the support will be poor. If you pay more within the product, you're going to get more support for it. It's just a fact of life. The other thing is, somebody mentioned a car and Subaru. I have to tell you, we're a Tesla user. Trying to get anything out of Tesla that is not somewhere in their automated system is virtually impossible and physically impossible, because if it can't be done automatically, you have to search the interwebs to find the answers. But typically, if you're paying more than the other products, there's support that you're paying for.
Mickey?
I just want to support with the Courtney mentioned earlier about actually knowing the people that do the technical work. They're technicians. Knowing the people that actually go out in the field and being able to call them directly could be very useful in terms of there's often a lot of bureaucracy and after sales support. You have to contact the official support channels, go through that. But if you know the people that actually go out and service things, it's a nice way to fast track things.
Next question.
Next one comes in from Tim Mann in Melbourne, Australia. Recommendations on a macOS audio file converter.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different options for this. One, there's a bunch of just standalone software that you can get of just apps there's a bunch of choices. So you can just check that out. This is a real pretty basic thing that you're trying to do. Also, most DAWs can do this, and actually, depending on what formats you're looking at, iTunes might be able to do it. I mean, it just depends on what exactly you're trying to convert. But yeah, there's a ton of options, and you may already have something that will work well just on your computer.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, it depends exactly what formats you're trying to convert from and convert to. For relatively simple things, I'm a big fan of Shutter Encoder. I really like them because it's built on top of FFmpeg, and it works for production workflows because it maintains metadata throughout the conversion process, if of course the destination format supports said metadata. Another one that I do use is Adobe Media Encoder. It has a lot of format support. If you need to do conversion of between different what do you call this immersive formats, Dolby Atmos conversion tool, if you already have a license for Dolby Atmos render, is also is good, and along with that is the Dolby Media Encoder as well.
Yeah, and I use a compressor for most of the simple things, and many of the things that Mickey showed, especially the Dolby converters for stuff that's a little higher order than basic conversion. Next question.
Next one comes in from Matt Cool in Montreal, Canada. Matt asks, my band uses a Presonus R32 rack-mounted mixer for our in-ear mixes, and it works really well, but it is only compatible with AVB technology. Is there any way to get AVB to talk with Dante?
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, they actually make one. Presonus makes one. It's the AVB D16, and it's a 16-channel AVB to Dante bridge. It's $600, and I think that's probably your solution.
Good, Marty.
Yep, exactly what I was going to say, and there's what it looks like.
Mickey?
Exactly what I was going to say as well.
we have we don't get that very often. Oftentimes we have, everybody's got a slightly different opinion, but right here you have the answer. All right.
I'd like to disagree with my first answer now.
Yeah, exactly.
At the moment, the only answer, I think.
Oh, right. Okay, well, there you go. So next question.
Consensus. Russell Cake from Brooklyn, Maine says, what's a good way to discuss PTZ cameras with the experts here at office hours? Looking for advice on using them for a wildlife film. Are there cameras that are more cinematic? Who do I call?
Yeah, definitely feel free to ask the specific questions that you have. I mean, you've already started a little bit related to a wildlife film. There's a couple things you got to think about there is if you're doing a wildlife film, how much time are you spending outdoors? Will the camera be exposed? I can see in some cases, wildlife films, there's a lot of advantages to a PTZ, and we've used them in Africa and in some parts of the United States where otherwise, we'd be sitting in a box for a very long time, and instead, we're somewhere further away that's more comfortable, and our scents go away. The scent of us goes, drifts off a little bit, and we're able to kind of allow it to run. But we gave it a little house, basically that it lives inside of. It does decrease where we can move it, but it generally is pretty well left alone, and eventually things start to show up over time. But over 8 hours, I haven't done it for more than 8 or 12 hours. I know some people sit there for days. So that's been all we've had to do it for, to try to, capture something that we're looking for. So the thing you have to think about there, though, is that there are cinematic and then there's also throw. So a lot of the stuff that looks cinematic, so the PTZs that I use the most are the Sony FR7s. That's because they're a full-frame sensor. They've got the same sensor as an FX6, unfortunately with slightly different color signs, but that's a whole other thing. And so we like to use those because it looks great, but they don't throw well past about 20 feet. So 25 feet is the outer edge for the lenses that are available for them right now. If you want full motion, you can put longer lenses on it. You just can't move. So those are the ones from a cinematic perspective that we like. And if everything you're trying to capture is less than 20 feet away, you may get some great shots that are there. When you start going into longer throws, a lot of the stuff that we've used in the past are Panasonics. The 150s are what I'm the most familiar with. I think there's a 170 out now. And so those will give you, I believe, a 20x throw. So now if you're trying to reach out and grab something, you're going to have a lot more zoom capabilities. Those sensors are smaller, so they're not going to have quite the same depth of field, but sometimes that's what you want especially when you're doing wildlife and you're getting something that's a little further away. The zoom will bring back some of that short depth of field as you go. And if you have too short a depth of field and you zoom out, you end up with an inch of focus. And so that's another problem that you may have. Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, and I wouldn't limit myself to all-in-one PTZ cameras for something like this. I would look into a full camera system that, with good interchangeable lenses, and place that camera system on a hot head or a remote head, as opposed to being, because in most like all-in-one PTZ camera systems, the sensor and also the optics are quite limited. But if you have like a full-on cinema remote head with like say for example, I know Planet Earth was shot on, well, the first Planet Earth was shot on the earlier Reds, the DSMC2 or DSMT1 actually system, the original Red Epics. And for those shots that required being remote, they used the remote heads that are used in the cinema or the film industry. So don't explore other camera options aside from all-in-one little PTZ things.
Yeah, 100%. A quick reminder, if you want to ask questions, of course, you can go to askofficehours.global. You can, of course, log into Mukana, but if you don't want to do that, and or if you haven't done it before and you just want to ask a question, you can go to askofficehours.global or use that little QR code right here, askofficehours.global. And make sure that your clear question, single question. If you get cute, we may not understand what it means. So be pretty straight and forward with one clear question, and we'll usually get it in the next couple days. Next question.
Next one comes in from Robert Shoji in Los Angeles. Says, what near-field monitors do you recommend under $2,000 for a pair?
Good, Nigel.
Yeah, I'm sure Chris and Marty will have better judge than me. I just wanted to give an observation, which is $2,000 is a lot of money for near-field monitors, unless what you're doing is very, very important production.
Mickey's like, we're just getting started here. Yeah.
Well, and so that was, I think, my point, that if really, I mean, I have some KRKs here behind me, which for what I do in my office space is great. My observation was $2,000 is a lot. Make sure if you need subs, you're thinking about subs. Think about really the use and whether you're trying to get to a reference or a preference sound, because that can also change the amount of money you spend. But I know that there's some great Neumann speakers. I know there's some great Kev speakers. There's a lot of great choices in speakers. It really depends what you can do with them.
Good, Chris.
All right, this is my favorite question of the day for sure. So, speakers, I just religiously, they are the most important thing in your studio. I don't care what anybody says. Your speakers and your room treatment, they are the most foundational thing. This is how you make all of your judgments, right? With speakers, the way that it really breaks down is real speakers. If you want to get into real professional audio speakers, pretty much the base level of those are going to start at $1,500. Okay, then the next jump up of them really is about $3,000, and there's a few options in the $2,000 range. So I would say let's look more under 2,000. So we're going to be looking more at 1,500. And that, I mean, I would look at Genelec 8030s are probably a really great choice. The thing to understand here is that you're going to look at these different options, okay? And as things get bigger, they will get louder, okay? But as they are cheaper, they are way less correct. So I would way rather have something that is smaller from a really high-end company than something that is bigger from a company that is really not doing if you're getting HS8s from Yamaha, right? That's an 8-inch sub versus some 8030s from Genelec. That's a 5-inch woofer, on that. No sub, woofer on both those. So it just depends on what you're looking for. I would try and stay away from subwoofers because it's a complete. There's a whole other element of things that can really make it incorrect for you of what you're listening to. So, Genelec is awesome. Atom, the A7X, that was a very, very popular. That's a ribbon tweeter. Some people love it. Some people hate it. It's just all up to option and opinion. Remember, if this is your first thing, you're going to learn it. So if you don't know what speakers sound like across the board, anything up in this realm is going to be a huge upgrade for you, and you will learn what the speaker sounds like. Make sure that you're approaching your room treatment though, because I have PMC 6.2s. You can look up what they cost. If I didn't have any of this room treatment in here, it would be terrible. They would be a horrible choice. So it's so important. These things really fit together. That's where I would start. Neumann does make some smaller ones that are awesome, and I'm trying to think. That's kind of where I go around. So, yeah.
Good, Marty.
Chris is absolutely right. Your loudspeaker system and your room acoustics, they work together, and that forms the foundation of every decision you make in your mix. right? Every little adjustment that you make is based on what you hear. So having accurate monitors and having a really good acoustic space to work in is really important. Now, having said that, over the last 10 to 15 years, loudspeaker technology has come a long way to improving the way that loudspeakers generate sound, how accurately they generate sound, and how well we can control them. A lot of loudspeakers are now have DSPs built into them so that you can adjust their frequency response characteristics and to some degree even their phase characteristics. Where you place them in the room is also important. You have to look out for reflections off of your work surface, your desktop, your mixing console. And there are a lot of good choices out there. Chris mentions some of the top brands that are very well respected. I'm going to throw out one that is more of on an economical range, and that is from IK Multimedia. They have a range of loudspeakers that are incredibly well priced. They come with a measurement microphone and the software to flatten out your speakers. The top of the line is the MTM line, and it's now going for like $1,800 a pair. And you can get them in packages for surround sound. So for like a 7.1 system coming in a single package that works together. So I would look at IK Multimedia.
Good, Mickey.
Yeah. Plus one on what Chris recommended, which are Genelecs. They certainly are popular and sort of a standard, especially in the broadcast and film industry for a reason. Though I would go save up just a little bit over $2,000 and get a pair of the 8040s, 8040Bs instead of the 8030s. They have a larger woofer compared to the 8030s, which will carry you a bit longer before you will be wanting a sub. Another option is the Neumann KH120, although they are a lot smaller. But if you go and test them out and you find that you prefer the signature of the Neumann studio monitors, you might want to consider these. Also, do not be afraid of getting used. Of course, test them beforehand. But this is a pair of Genelec 1031As for $1,300 US, and these are the real good Genelecs, like the wooden cabinet Genelecs. So don't be afraid of going used. A lot of sound equipment in general lasts a long time. So don't be afraid to venture out there. And while I was browsing around, I also saw a pair of 1032As at $3,100, which is over your budget, but Christmas is coming soon.
Are they still supporting those though, Mickey?
Genelec themselves, yes.
You can. The 1031s.
You can still get spare parts.
Drivers,
I bet they service them themselves, but I've serviced 1032As and replaced toroidal coils on them, transformers fairly recently, and I just got the parts directly from Genelec and I did the replacement myself.
Oh, that's awesome. And if for people who don't know, the 1031A, that was the first consistent, the first like real level of consistency in studio monitoring was the Yamaha NS10A, right? Or NS10M, excuse me. After that, these speakers were incredibly harsh and they had no bass. The 1031A is the speaker that was it was essentially the NS10 with bass. There you go. That's what they look like. But so this was, just so everybody actually understands what the speaker is that Mickey is talking about, is it was the standard in like every studio. It was NS10s and it was Tannoys, and that was what everyone used. So this is a really like historically foundational great answer.
Next question.
Next one comes in from Francis Fry in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I record from 2 Sony FX3s into HyperDecks to Cloud Store Max automatically, which seems like a miracle. I would now like to get audio from my Rodecaster Duo to the Cloud Store Max. Is it possible?
Good, Courtney.
Well, I would say maybe the best choice would be to come out and go into the analog. If you have the little adapter that goes into the hot shoe for the FX3 to add external audio ins, I would try and go into the camera so that your encoded HDMI signal out of that camera, which is going into your HyperDeck. The newer HyperDecks, unfortunately, I don't think they have an external audio in. They depend on embedded audio coming in over SDI or HDMI. The older ones did. Alex can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, because
I'm still bitter.
He's still.
we still nurse along we have some older ones, and we don't know why they took it out. It's a very odd thing to not make a modern version without two analog inputs, but it's a bummer.
So if you have that little hot shoe adapter for the Sony FX3 that gives you the analog audio inputs, you could run the analog audio out of your Rodecaster Duo into that, or you could get this requires a lot of tinkering. One of these audio embedders. This is a MuxLab, and it'll take optical, which unfortunately I don't think the Duo outputs or line or HDMI audio in and out. But these will take an external audio in and embed it in the HDMI on its way to the HyperDeck, and that way the HyperDeck signal will have audio married to it. And when that goes up to the cloud, it will be there in the cloud waiting for you.
Go ahead, Mickey.
So yeah, with this, there are several solutions you can put through. You can one option would be, since your Rodecaster is already connected to your computer, after your shoot or after your recording session, you can put the Rodecaster into file transfer mode, which turns the USB 1 output of the Rodecaster into a file storage connection, so that you can access the SD card from the computer. Then you can use something like rsync or some GUI for rsync to automatically watch for that SD card to show up and do a copy to your NAS or to your cloud store. That's one option. I don't know how. I personally wouldn't rely on that, and I'd prefer to do a copy that does a checksum, as opposed to just relying on the OS to do it itself. But that's an option for you. Another one is to maybe use the Rodecaster just as a multi-channel audio interface, and use something like Boom Recorder, which is quite a popular location sound recording software, and record using Boom Recorder directly into your cloud store, so that there's no file transfer needed afterwards. It's recording right into those drives.
Yeah, it's interesting. One thing I realized when this question came up is that, like, the Sound Devices 8 series will do camera to cloud for Frame IO. I just don't think that they necessarily support Blackmagic Cloud. It'd be interesting to see what they're thinking there. That could be another option if they supported the Blackmagic Cloud as well. Mickey's like, no, I don't think so. You don't think they would do it?
I think there are different segments of the market, and Sound Devices mostly place at a different level of the market. We'll see.
Yeah. Although I will say that when the Blackmagic Cloud came out, I think a lot of people looked sideways at it. It was kind of piecing itself together, and we're running into it more and more often now. At bigger, it's doing what Blackmagic does, which is it starts in a place that everyone's like, I don't think this is going to work, and the next thing you know, everybody's using it. so it's starting to pick up speed. Next question.
Next question comes in from Sagal, Idaho. James Olson asks, what would cause Zoom audio to be garbled and cut out on select mics, but not on others? 6 mics for a meeting are coming in analog through one mixer, which is feeding Zoom and PA speakers. The PA audio is good and not seeing the issue.
Good, Chris?
If I had to guess, I would say that you're having some kind of interaction between Zoom and essentially microphones picking up the output of the speakers and then gating and turning off because of the location of where some of those microphones are in the room. If I had to guess, I don't know if that's truly the end. But that's the thing. If you're just having certain things are just acting completely out of line and other stuff is fine. If the stuff is getting there, if your source material is actually getting into Zoom, you know that is set up correctly. But it's possible Zoom, there's a lot of gates and noise suppression, right? So just imagine if one of those microphones is closer to a speaker, and that when it's all doing what you're telling it to do, but when it's playing back, that noise suppression might be saying, hey, this microphone's getting some activity, let's close it down, and thus you're kind of in a bad spot. So.
Go, Mickey.
Yeah, I'd be curious. How are you getting the signal into the computer to go out to Zoom? I'm a possibility is that if, in case you're using a mixer that has a built-in USB audio interface that's transporting isolated audio channels, Zoom might just be picking up the isolated audio channels.
The capsule of your microphone also has its own limitations and its own set of those specifications. So it's really, you can absolutely be clipping the capsule of a microphone and look fine in your DAW, which again, this isn't something that is just with 32-bit float. It's just with anything, just be mindful. I would never go send anyone off to go record on their own ever, because you have to monitor this stuff. You are always monitoring. You're always in anyone who's trying to put on production, the more that you can control the environment, like fully, the better outcome you're going to have, right? The 90% of your product is what is recorded. So it's really important to get a good capture. If you don't, you redo it. You get a good capture, and then you start with that. So the amount of corrective stuff that I do just in my work it's really like, how do we get to the fundamentals? Everything that you're doing is going to do an immediate trust fall into the next thing, no matter what it is that you're talking about. If this is an audio chain, if this is relationships with your crew, right? I mean, you can just apply this to everything. There's an immediate trust fall. If that next piece cannot handle 100% of the load that is coming on it, that's your weak point, and it's going to collapse there. And that can happen anywhere in the chain in any kind of situation. So the real thing here is to just be methodical. Don't do everything all at once. Try and have a real consistent workflow so that when you get something that is acting weird, it's really apparent. You know, hey, no, this all works exactly like this every day. Why is this completely falling apart now? Oh, guess what? It looked okay, but actually really on further investigation, I'm seeing these issues now and all that. So there you go. Sorry, long-winded today. I apologize, guys.
It's all good. If what we're doing is valuable to you and you'd like to help us, make sure to subscribe to the channel. That helps us a little bit. And then also you can donate at officehours.global/donate. The funds keep all the servers and everything else running, so we really appreciate the support there. You can also volunteer and become part of the village that puts this together at officehours.global/volunteer. Go ahead and sign up, and someone will reach out to you and talk to you about what the opportunities are. Let's go to the next question.
Next one comes in from a QR code question from Yeshua Bell in Antigua in the West Indies. What are the best options for an audio interface in the $150 to $200 range?
I go, Chris.
I'd probably just look at the SSL, the SSL 2 Plus. I think is probably like your best bet in that range. I've heard that it's really an awesome little interface, and that's probably what I'd go with.
Go ahead, Marty.
So I'm going to put in a vote for Audient. They have some really nice interfaces, 2-channel, 8-channel. Look at the Evo series and the ID series. Also, Universal Audio or UA Audio. They have some really expensive interfaces, but they do have a lower cost line called the Volt line. Haven't tried them, but it's a very reputable manufacturer. $200 is not a lot of money for a good interface. So just look at what you're buying.
Good, Harshit.
I would second to get SSL2, but then if you're looking for something specific, the SHURE has a little X2U, which works out if you're just trying to grab some audio. If you're looking at the SSL2, just realize that there's 2 generations now. The second generation has 64-bit coming out at 32-bit float, whereas the first gen is 24-bit 192. So depending on your needs, if you are going to go to SSL route, just to be aware. Smaller package there. Audient Evo, definitely a good choice there. 96 kHz off of that unit. So just a few choices there.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, you don't mention like how many channels you need and also what formats you need to interface to and from. Like I'm assuming, I'm just going to assume that you're talking about analog audio in and out. Plus one on what Chris mentioned, the SSL2 and the SSL2 Plus. But in case, say one of the best deals in my mind for audio interfaces is Dante Virtual Sound Card. It is an audio interface. It interfaces between Dante and also and your computer. But if you think of it as a 64 in, 64 out audio interface at I forget how much it is, $30 or $50 US, it's an amazing deal.
One last question.
The last one comes in from the QR code, and Chuck Hodges in Tulum, California. I have to run an X32 Behringer. What iPad app is best for this?
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, there's a proprietary app that Behringer makes, so I would use that absolutely, and it's free. So
the X32 app from Behringer is a pretty good product, but Mixing Station is the product that everybody uses. MixingStation.app.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, my answer to this would be the eBay app. No, just kidding. I plus one on Mixing Station.
And Mixing Station, of course, is not just a controller for the X32. It's for many, many, many mixers. I think it's like 20 or 30 mixers that it can interface with, and it allows you to kind of customize your interface as well as. So it's not just an open and use it. You can kind of move things around and get them to exactly where you want. I have it open right now. Right in front of me here. So great piece of software. If we didn't get to your question, just a reminder that it goes back to your notes if you're in Mocana, and if you did it through the QR code, we'll bring it back in automatically. But if it goes to your notes, you need to bring it back in on another day. I want to thank all of the producers for all the great questions. This is a real short show without you, and a lot of great audio questions. Wednesdays have become a great audio day for us, and a lot of that's driven by the incredible panelists who join on the audio specialists specifically in today that join us to answer your audio questions, but it also comes from your great questions. So thank you so much. Thank you to the panelists for coming here and sharing your knowledge with everyone as well. I think we probably have a couple centuries of experience here today, and we just want to thank the panelists for bringing that experience to everyone. And I want to thank the incredible team on the back end who makes this possible. It takes a small village. It's roughly 20 people that get this thing off the ground every morning, including the panelists. So it's quite a thing that we've been doing every day since March 25th, 2020. We haven't missed a single day, and that's just an incredible testament to this amazing community. So we just want to thank everybody that it takes to manage, process, cut, engineer everything that we're doing. We're doing a lot of exciting things coming up in the next couple of weeks. You'll see them kind of rolling out over the next 3 or 4 weeks, and we can't do it without just such an incredible team. So thank you so much. Today, if we had done this in person and traveled from person to person, we would have traveled 36,000 miles, and that's 57,000 kilometers, and that is 282 million bananas for scale. All right, let's go ahead and jump into After Hours. Another good audio day.
Great job, everybody.
Yeah, it's good.
That was good. Lots of good questions from the audio, from our viewers and producers. Yes, thank you for the audio questions on audio day.
It's definitely help. I think people are slowly figuring out that Wednesday's a good day to ask audio questions. So you might get some good answers there. So great conversation.
It's a deep pool on Wednesday.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thanks everybody.
A lot of reproducer questions from our producers.
Ciao.
Take care, guys.